This is the April 16th meeting of the Capital Improvement Committee. It's 9 a.m. As there's no public here, I guess I'll waive the reading of the recording announcement. Jump right into it. I've provided you a spreadsheet of all of the requests that have been made to date. I actually had to update it after I sent you the packet. So at the end of the list are some from Dane for whatever reason you forgot to do water and sewer, so those are now included in there. And I have Department of Community Development and Planning in there as well now. So those are, I've added the request forms, but they are in the spreadsheet. I have all the request forms up on the screen. We can go through them one by one. I don't know how you want to handle this. Typically in the past, we've gone through each project, said, yes, this looks good. We make a preliminary list, and then we kind of hone that. In your packet is last year's report. Typically, we have to recommend 5% worth of valued projects according to the city's budget. Last year, that was about $3.9 million based on a $78 million budget. So I'm assuming we're looking at, again, about $4 million worth of projects to move forward with. So if anyone has any recommendations, I know Josh, you had mentioned to me on the list of projects, if they weren't high, you weren't interested.
No, I kind of, what I basically said was, well, two things. One, first, just to start off, so I've been here for a few years doing this, and I think this is a great step forward. I just want to just give kudos for the request form, because I think the biggest problem we always had sitting around here was we had a few people around the table that could discuss what their requests were. We had a few that weren't here, that couldn't. I think this allows for an equal playing field. So I love that. I think that's great. I did mention, yeah, I mean, that's one way we can eliminate some of the discussion, but I think one of the things I did want to point out was I think the high and the emergency ones should have a description that tells us what they need. Like, I think the low ones obviously are a few years out, but I think if you get to a higher emergency, so for me, that's what I'll be looking at. Oh, sorry. But yeah, I mean, that's one way you can eliminate some of the discussion. If you want to go through the highs first, the ones that are emergencies first, I don't know, but I don't mind going through the whole thing. But if we're gonna go this way, these aren't gonna line up with this, right?
They're all numbered. They have a project number up in the top row.
It's not gonna be in order of the table though, right? So we're gonna hopefully, because
I've got the idea. So they're not completely in order based on last year's spreadsheet,
okay,
but they're pretty easy to find.
Okay. Before we start, depending on what we're gonna do, I do wanna just point out, or ask the question, airport, building, city hall, there's a number of requests from last year that aren't on this year. And I do want to ask the question of whether or not we've received feedback that those aren't needed anymore, or if it was just not.
In most cases, I did not receive requests. Everybody got the same email with the instructions. I reached out to everyone who I didn't get them from. In some cases, they were going to get me the forms, they didn't. I didn't chase everybody down.
You shouldn't have to.
So if it's not here, I didn't receive it. In some instances, there were no requests. I know IT had no requests this year. Senior Center, Council on Aging had no requests this year. But I did not receive anything from Airport Building or City Hall.
Okay.
I would make the recommendation not to go through all the equipment. I think it's pretty self-explanatory.
Okay.
Especially the replacements. They're replacing an existing piece of equipment. It's pretty self-explanatory. Just a thought. It would save a lot of time.
Yes, because you have a lot of equipment on the list.
So do we want to let Dane go through and say these are the ones that we should talk about, and then we can hammer off all of his and do the same? And then... Yeah,
for those present, I'd say run through your items. So if you want to start, Dane. Actually, let's go down the list. Let's start with Jason, Community Development and Planning.
Sure. So there's some things not on the list from last year's CIP meeting, specifically indoor pool demo and the Mill Street Urban Renewal Plan Acquisition Infrastructure demo and the 140 Business Park that aren't on there. The 140 Business Park, we have an active review for a large-scale multifamily subdivision on the same parcel. So we're actually moving forward with that and looking towards whether or not that's going to be possible, because we, on the city side, have had no movement in terms of progress there. So that's no longer needed for funds. The Middle Street Urban Renewal Plan, we're actually reviewing an active offer for acquiring the Gardner's property, which is part of the Middle Street Urban Renewal Plan, tomorrow morning. So we already have acquired, we already have demoed, so I'm not sure actually why that was part of last year's ask for 1.6, so that's no longer needed. And the indoor pool demo, we already have the funds together for the Greenwood pool. The ones that are still on there are the downtown infrastructure improvements. So as we continue on with phase 5 and phase 6 for the downtown renewal and revitalization plans, this is just funds for FY26 and 27 as we look towards public infrastructure for, let's see what I put onto my request form. Roadways, sidewalks, lighting, drainage, other public realm features. So that's for that. In terms of selective demolition, this is just on there in case there are any properties that the city needs to acquire in terms of needing to demo that have been identified as contributing to conditions of slum and blight. So that's for 1.2 million, 600,000 for FY26 and 600 for FY27. The North Pathway Connector, just listed, actually it is listed correctly as the North Pathway Connector Nature and Bike Path. That's split off into multiple sections, so we would look towards doing a different section of that each year leading up to the full connection to the Winchendon pathway on the other side of Route 40. So that's something that we apply for grants every year, but this is just funds just to make sure that that happens, because there are some expensive portions, including a culvert, including kind of movement alongside a national grid substation, so working alongside with them to making sure that everyone's happy. And that covers, you know, safety features, like I said, the culvert for stream crossing, the full paving of the path, and that would go into FY28. And then lastly is the outdoor pool expansion pavilion and facilities. So I looked and I was kind of surprised that last year there was asking for 6.1 million for that, but ended up discovering that this was also with the intention of expanding the existing outdoor pool to an Olympic size to facilitate meets for schools to do swim meets there, as well as the expansion or the creation of the pavilion after the Greenwood indoor pool demo is finalized, as well as expansion of the facilities on site that are there already. So that's minus what I believe is already taken out with the unexpected bonds this year for siding, roofing for the existing facilities of the administrative buildings. So that's the amount of 6.1 million still, with the expectation that that would go towards, like I said, the expansion of the pool, the pavilion, and the expansion of any other facilities on site. And that would go through FY26 and 27. I'm not sure if there's like a certain way that.
Yeah.
So just to add, I think all of yours were categorized as high. That's a column I don't have on the spreadsheet, which in hindsight I probably should have done. Last year you had selective demolition, the nature trail bike path, and those are gone now.
Yep.
So you had the list that was recommended includes selective demolition, the demolition and the trail.
Yep.
How is an expansion of the outdoor pool to Olympic size a high priority?
It's more of the high priority for creation of the pavilion, which we're looking to do immediately after following the Greenwood pool demo, because they are split up into two separate projects. So because it was listed as both the expansion of the facilities and the creation of the pavilion and the upgrades for the pool in last year's CIP, I just created it as the same project.
don't build a pavilion immediately after demolition, what's gonna happen?
Then we'll look towards funding for the full amount for the pavilion. If we don't have funding fully realized for the
I
creation of the
guess my point
pavilion.
is, I'm not sure how it's a high priority, it's not, it needs to get done, or life within property or damage, it's more of a want.
It's,
It's a high priority, it's needed in the next 2 years. He's not listing it as an emergency. So they're looking to build a pavilion within the next 2 years.
just
But
so it's not.
maybe it's not including the Olympic pool, and maybe it's only, instead of 6.1 million, maybe those are split into 2 line items, but.
I'm just not sure it's a high priority. Let's see.
Just so it's not a active, we don't have it in the bid for the, demo, I think, to kind of like, I would say beautify the site after the demo is completed, so just to ensure that, you know, there's a smooth process from the demo of the pool and not having it be, a half-realized, area.
I saw the 6.12, and Jason and I talked about this yesterday, because I was like, what's going on with this, because you said you were surprised by it as well.
Yeah.
So I think, like, I would say that of that, the pavilion is like more of a priority for sure, but like the Olympic size thing can go down the road, is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah.
Okay. So in order to finish the demo and to put up the pavilion, I would say the pavilion's not necessarily a high priority, but I'd say it's definitely a priority in that project.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think some of it is semantics too on how we discuss this now, because this is the first year we're talking about priorities as emergency, high, low. In the past, we just looked at the year that they were funded. So like it would show FY '26 needs, FY '27 needs. So now we're putting it as a, like we're calling it high, emergency, and low, so maybe that's where we're getting into a little bit of a discussion about it. Again, just knowing it from the bid world, I know that the intention, based on the discussions that have been had, in meetings I've been in, is to have that pavilion built, you know, within the next year.
Yeah.
And so I think it fits within the high as defined as needed in 2 years. But again, I agree with Counselor that maybe it should be split where the Olympic-sized pool is, you know, a low priority, and then, or even not a priority, depending on what the discussion is, and that the pavilion is, you know, maybe it should be a smaller amount.
Yeah.
But then to go back to Rob's point, I do think, like, as we go through this, I think what we did in the past, just because Jason's only been here for 4 months, he doesn't know, is that we'll go through, and you haven't been a part of it either, I don't think even Council, we would go through and kind of say, these are the ones we think should be included, and we take all of those, we'd go back to it and say, okay, should we include all these? Like, we'd go back and just re-review it, so we might go through and have 40 right now, and then when we go back, we may have 20 when we finish. And I just would recommend that we at least keep on selected demo in the North Pathway Connector. Whether or not outdoor pool expansion pavilion facilities ends up being I don't know how we can edit that. I don't know if that can be done, but.
Is there any grants that could be for the outdoor pools, or available grants?
Not currently, most of the funds are gonna be going towards the Greenwood Pool demo
Yeah.
portion, but, you know, as it's CDBG funding, it's gonna be something that, as we classify under slum and blight, we have to continue that into future years. So as we look towards FY '26 funding, that will be something that they'll actually require us to have for continued use on the site, because they can't just have it be like, oh, it's slum and blight, demo it, and then you're good to go. They wanna see it actually be revitalized space, so that will be a part of our funding for next year, and probably a large portion of our FY '26 grant application.
Doesn't was it the downtown urban renewal plan or the target area go up Oak Street and grab the pool?
Yes, I believe it does.
So pools are generally, not always, but generally excluded from state and federal grants. But the facilities like the building are not.
Yeah.
But this
So it'd be more for the facilities, or the pavilion for
So the
next year.
pavilion.
The pavilion would be, because it's just encapsulating the demo of the indoor, or the indoor Greenwood pool. So it'd be the, sorry.
Kind of like our problem with the Orpheum Park, where we built a loft, and a grassy lot, and they didn't want to give us the money, and then, yeah, then you flex your muscle and we get it, so.
Professional term.
Yeah.
All right,
So
so,
apologies, I probably should have split it into
You got it done?
two.
Yeah.
okay, how do you want to proceed with, community development's requests? So last year, like I said, we had selective demolition in the nature trail bike path. For me, the bike path is high on my list because it's one more piece in that connection with other projects.
Mhm.
I personally think that should be on there. The selective demolition, I know in the past we talked about that, where that's something the city, wants to have money for, just to clean up the blight when the opportunity arises. And the pool expansion seems to be important as well. I don't know how you break that out, if you want to change that somehow. I mean, we certainly can do that if you want to, so.
If we can break it out, I would take the pavilion and put it there. I mean, this has been going on forever. I just want, like, the pavilion needs to be part of, like, a demo, we get a pavilion. That's just how I feel about it. We don't need the other, like, sure, we can expand the pool down the road and have that in mind when you build a pavilion, or if that's possible. But I just don't think we need to have the Olympic-sized thing. I think can happen down the road if it happens, if that's possible.
Did they give you an opinion of probable cost on the pavilion itself?
Yeah, about 1.2.
So you'd be reducing that to 1.2?
So the 1.56, whatever goes to 1.2
Yeah,
And then you eliminate the 4?
for FY '26, 1.2. And are you eliminating, I mean, we're not considering the 27 projects at this point, we're just looking at 26.
Mhm.
So discussion's fine. I mean, you can leave it there as is, because it's a wish item, I guess. But I would suggest, if the committee wants to move forward with the pavilion, we just change that to the 1.2 million and recommend that.
Recommended for what?
To make the list of high priority projects for FY '26.
I would pencil it right now, because 1.2 is more than 25% of what we're proposing.
I just have a hard time making a pavilion high priority when I'm looking at my roads falling apart.
Understood. So, Josh, to clarify, we're not trying to come up with the 4 million. That's what,
Okay.
in the end, that's what is recommended the city funds.
Yeah.
We came up with a priority list last year with 30 projects, which was probably, I don't have the total on here, but Waterford Street School last year was 3.5 million, so that was almost
Okay.
the entire 4 million.
All right, cool.
Essentially what happens is we give this report to the mayor and council. If the money's made available, the projects are then chosen, they go to council. So,
It's a recommendation.
yep.
So one question, clarification. Most of what Jason is gonna present is more than likely grant eligible or CDBG eligible. The capital improvement plan, how does it take that into effect? Because we're making a recommendation that the city spend tax dollars on these projects.
We as a committee can say, well, if it's eligible for grant funds and it's a good probability we get them, we don't have to put it on the list.
I mean, most of the times they need city
Yeah, it
portion.
might be a
Yeah,
piece.
that's probably why we have to put it on.
What if we recommend 1.2 million for pavilion and CDBG comes up with
Yeah.
800,000?
Yeah.
Or the full amount over the course of 2 years?
I think the city at that point, then the mayor doesn't go to council for that project if the funds are, the funds are received.
he would
From other sources.
he would be informed that these grant funds would be forthcoming and that we might not go for the full 1.2. It might only be a portion of what, at the time, we might be expected to receive for the grant funding for it.
I mean, last year, we did $1 million for the MVP implementation, and some of that was probably grant funded, and we did Safe Routes to School appraisals takings, that was somewhat grant funded too, when they, funded
Kansas
thousands.
City.
We did the nature trail bike path last year at 700,000, so that's obviously a huge increase.
Just a verification.
All right, what are we, from his department, what are we moving forward to at least consider for the priority list?
I think definitely North Pathway Connector, selective demolition. I'm okay with the outdoor pool as a pavilion, but if, I would obviously go with the group, so.
I would agree.
I agree with Josh.
Okay. So we're gonna say the pavilion, the trail, and selective demolition. All right, moving on. Well, actually, I'm next on the list.
Those are no's.
So I have got dam repairs, which is generally, it's something I ask for every year at 1.5 million. It covers, I think the engineering department covers 3 separate dams. They are a low priority, so I'll just skim right past that. Route 140 bridge design grant match, so as you know, we're designing a bridge to cross 140. I've applied for funding for up through 100% design through Mass Trails. The city will need a match. What do I have that at? $75,000, well, that didn't add up right. $75,000 for fiscal year 26. That would cover the city's portion. Again, to me, that's high priority. The project is ongoing. I need the money, so to keep things going and complete that, the overall project for the city, at a minimum, I would want this to make the final list. My next item, which is MS4 municipal property, BMP retrofit, I believe I am now asking for this in my budget. I asked for it last year, which it did make the priority list. This is something we need to be doing at our municipal facilities to comply with our EPA MS4 permit. Basically, we have to retrofit each property with stormwater BMPs that will treat runoff before we discharge it. This is a year-to-year thing. The permit's actually gonna change, and EPA is gonna require this of us every single year, do one every single year. So I am asking for fiscal year 26, I'm asking for $25,000 for design and $175,000 for construction. Again, I've put this as high because to be compliant with our permit, we're gonna have to do it.
Are the BMPs site-specific, or are they?
It would be site-specific, what works, what can fit, what, in most cases, you can't even get drainage after you, it's crazy.
In the storm drains.
But yeah, but it's something we have to do, and I have to start doing it. So again, for me, I kind of need this. So it made the list last year, and I'd ask the committee to consider that again this year. My next 2 items are tip list roadway design. So the tip list is state-funded construction of projects that the city designs for transportation improvement. The Uptown Rotary was one. There were others before that. I can't think of them off the top of my head. So we have to design a project. They get it on the list. It gets funded for construction. We don't currently have anything on the list moving forward, so that's money, if we can get. I'd like to include it, but I have it as low priority because obviously it's not critical need. However, ultimately I'd like to get money for projects, but I understand other things can maybe take precedence. So I'll go to my next project, which is the Elm and Pearson traffic signals. I've got $125,000 in for fiscal year 26 for design. These lights have been an ongoing problem. They're always, pretty much every time it rains, they go out. Although some repairs were made recently and they seem to be doing better, but the intersection, the lights are completely outdated. They're not compliant. We would need lights on masts with the poles overhanging the road, a whole big improvement. It's gotta get done someday. I had it as high because it's just been an ongoing issue for years and years. I did reach out. That 125,000 is an actual number. I get a quote from a traffic consultant to do that work. And then for fiscal year 27, I'd be looking for construction funding. But for FY 26, I'm looking for 125,000. Again, I placed it as high priority. I mean, we can continue to string it along, and it probably will continue to function, but it has to get done someday.
And they went out last summer.
And
We had stop signs up there.
yes, and that's when there was a new company that came in and actually made a repair that seems to be holding, but again, it's still probably just a Band-Aid.
And that was actually on the list last year, but it came from the building department.
Yes,
So it was on our list.
I took it because I reached out, I got quote, I got the number, so I added it to my list. Either way, whatever department it comes under, it needs to get done.
Well, repairs cost money too, so every time you have to make a repair, you're just spending money, it's like, just fix it.
Right.
You know?
For clarification purposes, design and study and all that stuff is considered capital improvement? It's not just equipment or construction? It is-
Yeah,
Okay,
Yeah, I believe that the project meets the capital requirements it is.
okay, okay.
So I had, let's see, go back up. I had high as Route 140, MS4 retrofits, and the Elm Pearson traffic signals, which is basically what I asked for last year. So my needs really aren't changing at this point.
I'd go with those that you mentioned, plus the tip list, because that's
Yeah.
free money.
I agree,
Yeah.
yep. Okay, so that would place 4 items, so Route 140, MS4, tip, and the traffic lights. Would everyone concur?
And I'm not,
Yep.
just to get back to my point earlier, I'm not gonna pick on Jason, but I would prioritize the Elm Street lights over a pavilion. It's infrastructure and it's public safety. The pavilion is something I view as, oh, that'd be nice. That's all.
I agree.
I do the same thing, I think just for this conversation, like, we have to, we're just, like, as for his department, that would be a priority, but of course, the full list is taking everything into consideration for sure.
You can always add loam and seed onto the bid for the demo, I'm not kidding, we can,
Yeah.
just so there's
And
something
then
there,
decide
so
to
it's not just,
sit there.
yeah.
There you go.
All right, let's, since Dane is sitting in the room, let's jump to Public Works.
Ugh.
So much paper, so much.
2 more weeks.
So, I have a list of all the DPW's equipment, and I looked at the next 10 years to try to replace almost every piece of equipment that the city has. The city has purchased, out of city funds, a sweeper since 2014. The rest of it's been subsidized by Water Department or Chapter 90. So at some point, the city's gonna need to start contributing to replacing some of this equipment. So I set up kind of a schedule for every piece of equipment here. They're all replacements. I don't think there's any new piece of equipment here that's I'm bringing into the fleet. So that's kind of what this was set up for. My spreadsheet goes 10 years. This is 5, just to give you guys an idea. As far as projects, going down towards the bottom of the page is DPW facility upgrades. The existing DPW was built in 1970. You can literally see outside from when you're inside. It's inefficient. It needs to be all new siding, new doors, new roof, and insulation added to it and kind of upgraded. So I put in $3 million for that.
Can I add just something real quick, Dave? Because we're doing these sheets, I did push back to Rob and say that it's a high priority, but there's no description attached to it. So I just think these serve as opportunities for people that aren't in the room to see what we're approving, and it would have been nice to just have what you just said.
Yep.
So, but I don't disagree, I hear what you're saying. It's the same thing that's happening at City Hall, and it needs to be repaired because it's too old.
Yeah.
No, I agree too, I think for the descriptions too down the road, if it gets the mayor to the council, it's already there, and then you don't get questions if you don't have to do down there.
So there's that. Jackson, there's a couple of playground improvements, which is just basically adding more playground equipment to the existing playgrounds.
It's not like safety director.
It's not a safety issue,
Okay.
it's just more equipment for kids, you know. As far as the baseball fields and the softball fields, the lighting does not work in some of them. So we'd be looking to replace the ball field lights in Bickford and OC. Pond Brook drainage in front of CVS, there is a steel plate over a drainage culvert that is collapsing, and at some point it's going to become an emergency and we're going to have to replace it. We're estimating at $500K for that. It's a terrible project to spend money on, but unfortunately it's going to have to happen. It's not a,
Is that on private property?
it is, but we own Pond Brook that goes down from a, so I believe we have an easement that we're going to have to go on private property.
It's ours.
It is?
Is that more of a higher priority than an FY '28, do you think?
It's probably, it's one of those things, it's just, when it happens, it's gonna happen.
I personally would move that up
Okay.
to,
You got the
FY
steel
26.
plate, it's gonna continue to wear away and.
It's a good steel plate, though.
Oh,
Yeah.
never mind.
That would be
Like the one in Cousin Eddie's head.
So that's, that project, yeah, that could probably be bumped up sooner.
Yeah, how do you guys do it?
It's just not it's not a fun project, it's just kind of have to happen. And then the other one is the sign room, for Dougie down there at the DPW. He's more or less working out of a closet at this point. It's completely too small. So we have, we're looking at expanding inside the existing DPW, adding a second floor and expanding the sign room.
And that's an investment that pays back quite quickly with all that he does, and all the money we save, we can,
Oh, God,
yeah.
So as far as priorities for me, DPW upgrades, Pondbrook and the sign room would be the three projects. The equipment, it's gonna need to be replaced. I have 1997 loaders that are falling apart down there. We're spending thousands of dollars on.
Would you also add the fuel storage tanks? Because isn't that required by,
That's gonna be 2026, the year 2026, I believe. So that would, I think it's next year.
I don't know, would that meet, actually now I'm thinking about it, would that meet capital project?
The tank removal?
Yeah.
Well, you're excavating 2 tanks, 10,000 gallon tanks, filling it and paving it. I think it would definitely be.
Well, I know the cost does.
Oh.
I don't know if it meets the guidelines for capital project. I mean, we can put it on the list, but yeah, I don't know.
what's that? I mean, it's definitely a priority.
I need it on the radar.
Yeah, no, it's not, I
Somebody-
agree, it's a huge priority. So you got, looks like 4 that I think the committee, facility upgrades, Pondbrook drainage, the sign room, and we're saying we should add the fuel storage. Are those, anybody amenable to that, to make the list? That's what the DPW director, I think, his wants are. Okay.
The definition is pretty loose, it's 25,000 and gonna last longer than 5 years. So if we take the tanks out, it's gonna cost more than 25,000 to last longer.
Right, unless it's got a lifetime.
So it's just a expensive project.
Yes. All right, Dave, on to sewer.
Sewer, again, a pickup truck, collection system improvements is a general, as far as the sewer system, sewer pipes need to be cleaned and lined. Some of the pipes are 100 years old, so I put more or less a rough number of 500K for the next couple of years to get some of that done. Pump station upgrades, the city has 9 pump stations, we've upgraded a bunch of them, but I believe there's 3 more left to upgrade. Summit Pump Station, which is over off of Suffolk Lane, would be the next one that we would have to upgrade at an estimated cost of about $1 million. And then the wastewater plant upgrade, we actually got a grant for about $4.5 million to continue doing some work down at the wastewater plant, so I probably won't need that $5 million until next year.
These would all be funded out of the enterprise fund?
Correct.
So you have, everything on there is high or emergency. You get the sludge landfill expansion at emergency.
Again, that's 2027.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yep.
So realistically, you're looking at the first 3?
Correct.
Rob, do we include these with everything else?
Yes.
Just a thought, since it's a separate pot of money, should it be? I think the reason it's on the capital improvement list in case there's borrowing. So
It's, yeah,
borrowing
I
has to be on
think the
that.
bond rating and everything.
If you include it into the 4 million, it sort of falls because it's coming out of the enterprise funds. Know what I mean?
I think in the past, it was important to have it on the priority list, knowing it probably doesn't make it into the 4 million spent on projects. So when projects are chosen out of that list, they just gleaned over.
last year, we just approved the wastewater treatment for $5 million. That was on the list last year.
Yep.
No, I don't have a problem with anyone, I was just wondering about the finances.
So we're continuing with that practice though, like, anything we think is a priority, we're gonna put on the list, knowing it might not, you know what I mean, just to,
Knowing that there's another pool of money.
yeah, just putting it on there saying, this is, we're acknowledging this is a priority and it could be funded this way, but if there's other funding, it goes there and it's adjusted.
Well, it's
And the
almost like
recommendations adjusted.
It's almost like the grants too, I mean, some of the, that's on there, grants gotta be grant money, so it's not gonna be city money, so it's the same exact thing, so.
I'm okay with that, I'd rather put out there what we think is a priority.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
the
I
recommendation, but if I'm wrong, I wanna know too.
I think it's important that we come up with a priority list, and then that gives the mayor and the council a deep pool, if funds are available, to then, you know, you can go to those departments and decisions can be made, I think, based on that list. But I think the list to the bond companies and our bond rating depends on it as well. So when you go for money, you can say, oh, it's on your capital list, it's,
Well, as long as it's on here, it's on the list.
yeah.
Priority list.
Yes, you're right.
Question I think was used too, maybe an asterisk, enterprise fund. So anything that comes from water, sewer, or golf as an asterisk. So it's known that, hey, council has $2 million. Oh, look, this enterprise fund. Oh, wait, no, that's enterprise fund.
Yeah. I mean, they make the list as they're noted as enterprise on the spreadsheet, what goes into the report. I mean, we can do it in the
Yeah,
report
the
as well.
priority, and if it's on the priority list, I think it should just parentheses or an asterisk,
Yeah.
something that says enterprise.
Yeah, I just think from a council or public perspective, transparency, all of those things, when it goes in the report, like, anyone who reads it, it just makes it a lot, having it in there and having like a small explanation, asterisk, whatever it is, just makes it say like, okay, we know these are priorities, but here are the other things that are in here, here's how it's paid for, here's what we can put this money towards, and this is why it didn't go to this money, like, you know, that kind of a thing.
Yep.
It just saves questions and speculation and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, in the
Just
report,
from that perspective.
we can certainly asterisk water and sewer,
Right.
or golf if they had one too, with an asterisk and a footnote just saying, you know, enterprise accounts are funded separately through enterprise rather than general budget, whatever.
Are there other items that come from something outside of a general fund, other than those?
Just golf, I think.
Golf is doing
Sanitary,
Is there anything school related that comes out of something that's not general fund? Like your,
the landfill,
Oh, yeah,
solid waste.
solid waste, landfill closure.
I would just, I've been agreeing with you too much, so just to disagree. I don't think this list right here is a priority. This is a list that's a priority from each department, but we're determining what's a priority based on our review.
Yeah.
And then that's what goes on that list, and then, but I do hear what you're saying. I don't think it's a bad idea to asterisk and say sewer enterprise, water enterprise, but I don't think this is a priority. That's just my.
No, yeah, I agree.
And it's just one other question, as far as pickup trucks, and this is probably a question, there's a ton of pickup trucks on here. Those are more commercial, like obviously a front-end loader, somebody's not driving home. Do we have vehicles that are on these lists that are like personally used too? And I don't wanna say personally used, I wanna say like, we have some vehicles, they're parked here, nobody uses them, they go anywhere else, and we,
The foremen are allowed to take their
yeah, okay,
trucks home.
yeah, okay.
It's not for personal use, but.
Yeah, no, so they're ready to be available.
The on-call group.
Yeah, okay, I got you. Yeah, I didn't wanna use the word personal, I was trying to figure out another way to say
Well,
it.
you said it a lot now, Josh.
Yeah, employee-based work.
Water or
Well, I don't think we've made any decisions on what we want to add to the list.
Yeah.
Somebody want to recommend on the
I mean, I
director?
would recommend collection system improvements and pump station upgrade.
I'm good with that.
Mhm.
That's all you want to do.
Cool.
All right, water.
Okay. PLC replacement, that is at the water treatment facilities. They have, the operators go on a computer system and they can more or less modify and run the water system. That computer system's about 20 years old and needs to be upgraded. The last estimate I got was about $250K. That's something that's gonna need to be replaced pretty quick. And the Crystal Lake roof, the building, the water treatment facility on Crystal Lake, that roof needs to be replaced as well. They just got an estimate of about $130,000 yesterday, they told me. That's something I'd be looking at doing possibly over the summer. Dam repairs, it's next fiscal year. Elevated water tank, the elevated tank that's on 140, the steel tank, it was built in the 80s. It needs to be cleaned. We're trying to figure out how we can take it offline and still provide pressure to the water system and then clean the inside of it. So that's something we're gonna need to clean and due at some point pretty soon. Treatment facility upgrades, that's just, again, more or less, internal pumping, pumps and things like that that need to be replaced. I can more or less fit that in my budget, not necessarily as putting it as a capital improvement, but I put it as a ticket item just in case something happens at the treatment plant that I need to request money from the council. Pearly Brook Pump Station, that's out on Pearly Brook on Clark Street. You'll notice you'll go by a little concrete building that we use to pump water from Pearly Brook up to Crystal Lake. I believe it was built in the '60s, late '60s. It needs to be changed at some point and upgraded. Water main replacement, that's just an ongoing, at some point, we're gonna need to get back into water main replacements when the rates can support it. And water meter replacement, last time the water meters in the system were replaced was about 2001, so we need to start replacing the water meters in the system as we go. As far as priority, the PLC replacement, the roof, and the meter replacement would be my three to pick.
Oh, the elevated water tank.
I'm hoping I can push that off another year. I don't think the rates can support it at this point.
So last year, water, you had the roof, the PLC replacement, and the transmission line, which has been done. So the only new thing is the water meter replacement, which, again, I know and you know has to get done. It actually would be way more accurate if we had new meters, and revenue would go up slightly because they read more accurately. And DEP really wants them to do it, so I would recommend that.
But that's a multi-year project, right? I mean, you gotta start it and then,
I have a
Go
question.
ahead.
So if it's multi-year though, would you need the full amount right away? Like just,
I'd
like I
like
don't know how it works.
I'd like to try to hire a contractor and Bangor as many as we can, so that's why it's uploaded.
So it would need to be
over
for the
to
full amount?
It would be split up, $1 million one year, $1 million the next year.
Okay.
I'd be in favor of those.
Those three? Okay,
I agree.
I agree.
Thanks.
All right, well, Mr. Hawk.
Well, this is gonna be easy.
You're on the clock.
Several of these have funding almost in place. The only thing I bring up is the facilities pickup truck, 60,000. It's not gonna pass inspection. I think it's a, do I have a year on that?
Oop, I go by, where is it? Yes, touchy.
There, 2012. Yeah, it's not gonna pass
It's
inspection.
brand new.
It's way newer than some of Dane's trucks.
According to DPW.
Any less?
Facilities I drive.
They'll buy it.
So the others that we do have the funding pending, I suggest just leaving on the list, not making a priority, because the funding is pending. The road improvements, it's mainly the, from Catherine Street down to the middle school. That road is very, very tough shape.
You have that as 27?
That's just because I don't believe the money's gonna be available, so. We can limp it along, but yeah, it's gotten it. And then the final one that we're moving forward with, no matter what, is the GHS elevator renovations. That's the one I submitted late to you like
Yep.
a couple weeks ago.
Yep.
Because that has to be done. We have to have a working elevator. And so nice and easy.
So, out of those,
Those are the three that I would say are kind of priorities.
your pickup truck, the elevator, and the road
Yeah.
improvements?
I mean, the city owns Catherine from Pearl to the
Yeah.
ends of the house, I'll say, know where the house is in.
And it's the middle school road.
Yep.
But if the city, I don't know, when Catherine was done, it stopped 30 feet short of Pearl Street, and when Pearl Street was done, it was like 30 feet.
I know, we're down there patching a pothole as we speak.
Yeah, that opens up every year too.
All right, so of those three, the elevator, you said you're doing regardless.
Well, we have to.
So, is that moving forward now? I mean, should this make the list?
Well, it's moving forward, it should make the list if funds become available, awesome, but we have to do it, so we'll find a way to pay for it one way or another.
Yeah, there's a delay of like
Yeah,
12
we can't
weeks
do
for
it
the
till the summer.
equipment.
Okay,
Yeah, they
all right.
can't,
Because it's
so-
gonna be a 6 weeks
Yeah.
plus project, and
Yeah,
they have to do design and submittals, and
But it's a high priority because
it's an emergency.
it's an
Yeah.
emergency,
Yeah.
and if you would pay for it for this, you could use this to do it.
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
Um,
Sound good?
I have a question. Standby generator. Generator to me seems to be an emergency. Is that something that,
We don't use it that often, so it's good enough for right now, but
but it's
it's
a
past its useful
Yeah.
life. So I wouldn't say it's emergency, it's,
I mean, it's an emergency if things go down.
oh yeah,
And you need a generator.
if it breaks down,
But you see it as a future need, not a
Yes.
2006,
Yes.
26? Okay, right. I'm good with those. Actually, on the driveway at the road, have you gotten quotes on that?
no, we just did a back of the envelope estimate based on
I can get a quote.
the work.
Okay, well, that's, I mean, I'm okay putting it forward as is, but it seemed kind of high. It's fine.
Well, if we get a quote, we can
It's a
just
really nice
change it, right?
Yeah, we can update it.
Yeah, so if you get a quote,
We
we
could
can just
even
update it.
take out the
Still should
granite
be-
curving. It's got concrete curbs that are just disintegrated.
Yeah, it was,
So that would be nice, to
That's
hold the
what road
sidewalk in
salt does.
place, but if we could at least resurface it, that would be cheaper, yeah.
Just to follow up on last year, high school replaced toilet partitions, high school upgrade standby generator, C-wing locker room renovations, and the middle school replaced, like those, though. I don't.
Those have the
Oh,
funding
I got you, I
almost
got
in
you, I got
place.
you, I got you.
I mean, so I'm good with those three requests.
Yep.
Okay,
I'm sorry, I just have to bring this up real quick. So for this school, like the department says submitted by, is it supposed to say school or should it have like Mark's name? Like, I just feel like,
no,
what I know from the past, and I'm not trying to be picky, I'm just saying like, in the,
Oh,
in the
no,
past, in the past, it just seems like some of these things, I know we're doing things differently moving forward, so I wanna acknowledge that, but I just feel like it'd be good to have someone's name on it to go to, if things change, people change, whatever, I just know also, I feel like from Jason's experience coming in and just having to kind of figure some of these things out, which he did, and it's fine. I thought that was supposed to be like a person's name, so that's all I'm saying.
it was.
Okay,
Or title.
and I don't know if it comes from
Yeah.
Mark, or if it comes from Pellegrino, or if it comes from
But
someone
on
else in
this
the
list,
department.
department has fire, police,
Hey.
school.
I
I'm
mean,
just trying to keep everything right.
No, the school department is such a big, it's a huge department, it's just in case some of the stuff was coming from like someone specific in the department and you were submitting it,
Well,
from
you're never
your
gonna get
position.
one from the principals or anything like that. The only one it would be is whatever my position is.
Right, that's what I'm saying, so I just think for historical transparency type stuff, if that has a person's name, that's what I would, I just wanna be sure, clear on that, 'cause for the other departments as well too, and I know this is a new system, and I'd rather just start off on the right foot, just.
So the school business
I mean,
I just wanna make
just
sure
to defend
everybody
Mark,
correctly as
checking for a
well.
fever, at least he responded. No, I'm checking for a fever though, just to make sure.
I would love to go down the road if you want to, Josh.
Okay,
No, I agree with you.
let's move on to the fire department. So he's got 1, 2, 3, 4 fiscal year 26 requests. The first being department radios is an emergency request. So basically replacing all his portable radios. I believe this was a request last year as well.
Yep.
Yeah, it was. The next one, 3-bay garage, fire headquarters, standalone.
That estimate seems real low.
I think that's to build that's tearing down the old Cumberland Farms, right? Is that what this is? Yep. He's got that as high priority. So basically tearing down the annex that they have and building a 3-bay standalone garage.
I agree, it sounds a little low.
Unless it's unheated and it's just the cold storage building.
Garage.
But if they haven't running water, they're gonna have to heat it, so.
Yeah, I would assume it would be a heated building.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, they need it, which is,
Cast iron drains.
yes.
All right, next one was, let's get here.
It's a low one.
So for the last 26 requests, I think, what is that? Replace car 6, and he has it as a high priority.
You wanna buy that one too?
2015. I'll take that one.
And then his last
Maybe I
26,
should bid on it.
his last 26 request is, I believe, a new headquarters.
They get a brand new roof,
With a priority.
Brand new headquarters.
Yeah, that buys him another 20 years, doesn't it?
50.
Um, So I'm just looking at 26 requests. I think replacing radios is probably prudent. It's
I think so.
public safety.
Yeah.
It was on the list last year. I'd be in favor of keeping it there.
Yeah.
A 3-bay standalone garage.
If it were me, I would, if you're gonna bite the bullet and do renovations to the headquarters, you would do it all at once.
Right.
And make it one large building probably.
Mhm.
That was the idea of buying
Yeah, I would hate to build a new building for a 3-bay garage, only to then find out we could have added on to the existing building by tearing this down and using. I'd much rather see that study done than, I think, I don't want to speak for the chief, but yeah. I wouldn't personally put that on the list as a priority. I know he has his needs and he needs that, but I think it's a better use of the property if we looked at doing something different.
Well, so I know they're listed here as projects, but those two items, the 3-bay garage and the headquarters building, those are our priority to get done. So could we just say I don't know if he can resubmit or you can talk to him, get more clarity and we can change it, but I feel like, yeah, he is saying they do need these for whatever their reasons are. It's not up to us to figure that out, but I think they should be on a list saying this would be something we put forward. This way doesn't seem to make sense, because you said this quote seems really low, and then if you put these two together, you know what I mean? Like if it was a different item, we might say, yeah, throw it on there,
There was a study item,
or something, yeah.
feasibility.
Yeah, I guess, we could add, I know it's a priority, he needs something, that building's approaching its useful life if it hasn't already. I'd be in favor of putting the request for the upgrades to the existing building, if it included expansion and looking at using the property that came with the annex to do that, to expand the existing building, if that's his need.
Well, can we give him that feedback and have him resubmit it and then?
I think there needs to be a feasibility study first.
Yeah, I think,
Combining, obviously, and then a feasibility study.
Yeah.
The building is old. It was built as if females did not exist at the time, because there were no female restrooms or changing quarters or separate sleeping quarters or anything. But yeah, you gotta design it, or at least have an idea, can you use the Cumberland's property, and how are you gonna add on and expand,
And the air quality is awful. There's a lot of other, we could go on, but that is the biggest thing, is the female facility piece of it. So maybe we could offer that to him and just get.
The 10 million is probably too low, to be honest with you, too.
Oh.
So, you're just
22.
throwing numbers at a dartboard here, so.
yeah, Mark's right, they need a feasibility study.
Which could help them in the end.
So you're thinking, new portable radios, we all agree should be on there, right?
Yep.
And then it sounds like we're leaning towards not adding the 750 and the 10 million. Are we adding car 6, which is the other 2026?
I think that's fair to do.
Yeah, he's, outside of the building stuff, he's not looking for much for next year, so I think I would add that to the list as well, if everybody's looking
But
at
that's
that.
also a vehicle that's 5 years younger than what Dane's requesting.
How do we wanna handle, I can talk to Chief and have that conversation with him. Even if we suggested, well, why don't you add a request for a feasibility study to use the property? He has no, we don't have a quote on that. It's typically,
we can ballpark it.
yeah, it's typically, you can expect a percentage of what a probable cost of doing something would be, but we don't have any of that. I'd be open to him, it's gonna cost $300,000 to do a feasibility study, or some number, I'm just making one up, and adding that in, because I think it's important, I think we have to do that before we do undertake either of
We
these.
need to know what we're looking at before we.
Yeah, we need more information. I would just let them know, like, hey, sure, we recognize it's a priority for you, but it needs, this can be done a different way, let's talk about that.
Just for transparency though, we did put Dane's DPW building upgrade, and do you have a feasibility study for it? I mean.
Well, I had a contractor come down, just.
Yeah,
walk
so,
through.
okay, so then that's good, then at least we have something that kind of points to a number, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we're being transparent with both, because that's a significant building upgrade as well, so.
Well, the other problem is, we only have one fire station. If we tear that one down and build a new one,
There's gotta be somewhere.
Doesn't get out there, you know.
use the DPW.
Well, but you'd use the Cumberland Farms and the empty slot to build the new, try to work out of the old one, and then it's not gonna be fun, but it's
We're
possible.
gonna need to take, 2 more apartment buildings.
Well, we'll go back to the places we looked for the police station that weren't picked.
Honestly, a feasibility study should look at that,
Yeah.
because they have to deal with
Yeah.
how do you renovate that
Continue
building.
operations.
In transition.
Right, well, and quite honestly, anytime we spend money on anything, people always want the, well, why are you doing this, how do you know it costs this much, how, we have to have the documentation now, just do it now, and then it's done for the future.
Yeah.
Because if not, you're just
I
gonna
mean, the
have questions,
recommendation
and they're
could
good
be-
questions.
Having a smaller central fire station and then another satellite one, because this was built back in the 70s when a lot of the roads around the periphery were not there, so
I mean,
you'd have to look at their calls, where they are, and do a good map and say, you know what, makes sense to have a 2-car garage there and a 4-car in downtown.
I will have that conversation with the fire chief. We, yeah,
If he gives you a number, can we approve it, or do we have to meet again, or like,
I
I
yeah,
think we
I think we
can
could-
approve the theory and, you know, a rough number.
yeah, I think we'd put a placeholder in for him.
okay,
I think we could, yeah, we could say now, if you have that conversation with him and he says, okay, to a feasibility study to get a number, we're okay with that, right?
Yes.
We can all agree to that, okay.
Yeah.
yeah. Okay.
All right. Fire, golf, no request for golf. Health department, so health department had 2 requests. We did not put priority down for the first one, for landfill erosion control.
It's an ongoing issue.
Yeah, I would place that at, or actually emergency, because it's been an ongoing issue since I've been back as city engineer.
And they already have a bid that's been awarded for it, so.
There's a picture.
There, he did include plans that they had some work done,
That's a sanitary vehicle, just so
yes.
Yeah, these plans have already been bid out, that's why he has it. I mean, he did a great job of submitting support for it.
Okay, it's been vetted out, so are you saying we shouldn't even really consider it, because it seems like it's moving forward?
No, it hasn't, it was bid out, it was awarded in November, but it hasn't gone forward. This is the one that I brought up, that he hasn't responded about, so I think it's gonna end up being rejected, and then he's gonna have to bid it out again. So it's definitely a priority.
Okay, all right, and so then his second request is for transfer station facilities, which he has placed at high. Construction of a permanent transfer station office, which I believe he's doing as modular buildings according to this. I know this has been an ongoing thing for him. I think even before his predecessor was kind of dealing with this. And he has both, well, he has 200,000 for FY '26 on the transfer station. I don't know why it's not all loaded up front. Either way, I think both of these have to get done, and there's a need for both. I'd be open to putting them both on the list.
I think so.
I agree.
Okay.
So the first one should technically be under landfill closure, but there's no money in it, so we would have to fund it.
I think that's, I don't know where the
Because
funding
the
is coming
landfill
from.
closure is supposed to be the 30-year or 50-year
It'd either be,
not irrigation, but controlling of the vegetation and erosion and everything else for the landfill. But there's no money in that account to do it.
I think that 400K is low too. That's another one.
On the transfer station facilities?
Yeah.
I mean, he's dealing with a contractor. I mean, I believe he's gotten information to support that. I don't, he didn't provide it, but, or did he say
Well,
it in his
in the-
description?
No, and support it,
Right there.
329, right there.
Oh, yeah, right there.
329,
Probably not prevailing wage.
true.
It's probably one, and then there's like
If he
site improvements that he needs to
Yeah,
get done
if
there
he-
as well.
buys it and has it manufactured somewhere else, it doesn't have to
Buy
be
like a little modular building, I mean, just needs the toilet, basically, I think that's their biggest thing.
Yeah.
Well,
They rent a porta potty.
And electricity, I think.
Yeah,
I understand, it's gonna involve
Refrigerator.
pumps, because they need a pump to a manhole, they need to,
Yeah.
They need electrical too, they don't have that.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I'm saying, the building might cost that, but I think there's way more site work
Sure,
that's gonna need to get
sure.
done.
Gotcha.
Just,
Which is fine, and I agree with you, but I still think it makes the priority
Yes,
list
100%.
based on the cost provided.
Okay.
So that's good. Let's see, human resources, I didn't receive anything. IT, Mr. O'Keefe had said he has nothing this year. Works we covered. On to police, which there's a single request, and this one is probably worth reading.
it's fiscal 27.
Yeah, it's a low priority, it says.
Oh,
Yeah, it's-
okay. When I had a conversation with them, it seemed like it would be priority, but, I know there was a big investment, and it looks like it's fiscal year 27 to update their software. That was the conversation I had. The company I think they currently use, they can't just bring over their database into the new software, so they have to pay the company to do it. That's where I think that big initial cost comes from, the migration and setup. But if they're not looking for it for 26, I guess it doesn't make the list. I'm glad it's on the list, that we know it's coming, so, I think we're moving on from police, is that what I'm?
Yeah,
Yeah.
so it's usually-
Police, I think that covers the entire list.
Actually, submitted by,
What is that?
that's where you want to see them.
Yeah, it's like a personal.
Sid School, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
department is fine, just submitted by,
I was wondering if it's private.
you should never know what's gonna be with one in the future, I think it should be person's name.
Eighth of police station, the separate work that.
I think
That
that
was
was,
on last year, the paint
Okay.
station.
I think it was on the top of what would be considered the chair, one of the sections was coming off the building. So I think they did some masonry work to repair that, yeah. I'd have to go back and look at the dates, but I know it was a state contract that we used to do it, so.
All right, so at this point, I think we've come up with a list of what will make our priority lists. The report is essentially generic year to year. It describes some history on it, what the spending goal should be, which I will update based on, I'll talk to you, John, get some budget numbers.
Okay.
I had 78 million last year, I don't know if that's gone up or how
Yeah.
much it's gone up.
Oh, yeah, I'll give you a number.
I will update the lists. I will include a note about the enterprise accounts, and maybe, John, I can work with you on language on how those are funded separately, just so I have the terminology correct.
Okay.
I'll asterisk in the list that they are an enterprise account.
Yep.
And that they're funded through the revenue in those accounts
Mhm.
somehow. And there, we did have a note last year, just kind of in memory of Councilor Ron Cormier, which obviously I will remove from the report this year. I don't remember what we did last year, if I circulated a draft. I can do that, certainly when it's done. And again, I'll have the conversation with the fire chief, and I'll have a placeholder for a feasibility study, if that's what he chooses. Or at least I would encourage him to do that, because I think it's important. And then from there, once the report is finalized, I will, I'll circulate it to the mayor and council.
Sounds good.
Anybody have anything to add?
I think this new system is great, I'm glad.
And
I hope it works out for you.
Yeah, well, no,
But I think it looks really good.
I think it was more work for me because I had to, typically I circulate this, it comes back, I just make sure the spreadsheet's working correctly. I do think it was probably important that, which I didn't do, was having a column for priority in the spreadsheet so you can easily see. So I think I'll actually add that in before I circulate this. And then, trying to think
Well, I
this-
mean, it's kind of there because you're doing it based on the years, so.
Yeah, yeah, I'll think about it, because the way they're submitted, because they're multi-year, and they
Yeah.
go into the spreadsheet that way, it doesn't necessarily
okay,
translate to, but maybe I can say FY '26 need, or,
I mean, you work so hard on it, we're just trying to make it easier for you.
actually, Councilor Tyros did most of the work on the form, so again,
Yeah.
thanks to him for that.
The description's really helpful, like, not being in this, not committee before, not, like, if I came in without a description, I would have been like, how can we do this without knowing what these other departments want who aren't represented here, so, I think it makes sense.
Discussion at the last year's committee was to do this, which we've done. I think the goal, I think it would certainly be helpful. There's been a sentiment that there's those stakeholders at the table who can discuss their projects, give, describe their need and the priority for their projects, whereas we don't have people who are submitting, we haven't spoken to. Again, it might have been nice to have the fire chief here today. So I think my goal would be to, in the future, to schedule them to come into this meeting, give them 10, 15 minutes, it doesn't have to be a long period, so that they can present them just like we have. So I think that's my goal for next year. Again, one of my goals also is to do it earlier. I think that the ordinance requires these to be submitted by November. So again, we're gonna work on that.
So we're really early for next year.
Yeah, so we're.
So tomorrow,
If you wanna make this 27, we can. But there's that. So again, we're working I wanna see this process mean more, be more meaningful when it's presented to the mayor and the council. So having that information from the other department heads or those submitting on the submitted by field on the form will be helpful in the future. That's all I have. I'd love to hear a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion.
Second.
All right, motion carried. Thanks, guys.
Nice job, Rob.
Yes.